Okay, so I've done some work with materials. I've got some elements in there that are now going to work with my render. So I want to work towards getting some lights set up, and to get the lights to work, generally you're going to need some ceilings. So I've got, just going to open up a section view. Oh, I thought I had. So, sorry, I'll just check that. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I thought I'd done that. So, okay, so, Harriet, yours isn't coming up. Okay, so some of them aren't coming up for some reason, but you can always look at the screen next to you. So, the levels there, you can see, obviously in the section, and you do need to have a pretty good awareness of the heights of the levels that you're dealing with when you start to go and look at your ceilings. And so, I'm just going to spend a bit of time looking at that. I've got the lower floor level there at 300, and then the upper floor level at 2800. So of course then the difference is 2500. And I'm just going to measure though the distance using the measuring tool, the tape measure, from the floor there, from the lower floor at 300 to the underside of the floor above. And you can see it's coming up as a bit of a, well, another nice round number. So I'm just going to select this floor and see why that is. That actually should have been a round number. So I'll just check that again and do it from the level here. That's right. And then, so I must just do the points I'm clicking. Should be a round number still. Oh yeah, so it's just the points I clicked. Okay, so that's better, 2350. Okay, so, so again, the difference between the levels is 2500, but from floor to, we'll say floor to ceiling at the moment, it's 2350. But we still need to put a ceiling underneath that. That's a floor. And so technically, even though you can build ceilings to the underside of a floor just by lining the floor joists, in Revit, you need to make a separate ceiling object. And we need to know the height that ceiling's going to be and also its thickness. And so this is where you've got to make some judgment calls with this project about how you're going to comply with the standards or the regulations, because that's going to give us a ceiling that's not compliant. And have you looked at that in the studio class? What the requirements are for ceilings? Okay. Right, so when you do your construction class, you'll go right to all of this, but you should start to look at it even now. It's all in the BCA, and oh, thanks. Yeah. So don't you know the height, the minimum height for a ceiling in a living space? No, 2400, yeah. So 2100's for service spaces, kitchens, bathrooms, things like that. Can be 2100. But again, living spaces, yeah, you're right, 2400 is the minimum. So this is an existing building though, and the ceilings are already lower than that. So that's the height we need to make them. So we're making them lower than what's allowed, but again, because it's existing, we can say that's okay. So if it's 2350, we've got to squeeze a ceiling in there somehow. So I'm just going to make the ceiling 50 mil deep, and then that'll give us a 2300 ceiling height. That'll also mean we're going to have to make some adjustments to the lights as well. So again, even though I haven't done anything there, it's really important that you have a look at a view like your sections and get a good understanding of the heights that you're dealing with. And so now I'm going to go to my ceiling plan. So you can see in the project browsers, the browser there, I've got floor plans and then ceiling plans. And so for each floor plan, I should have a corresponding ceiling plan. And so there, under ceiling plans, I've got lower floor. And maybe I'll just show you the difference. So my lower floor plan, of course, shows everything on that floor level. So my bed and all the furnishings that I've got there, you can see clearly. If I go to the lower floor ceiling plan, I can't see any of those things. Now, have you drawn a ceiling plan in any of your other classes? So, sorry, I should call it RCP, reflected ceiling plans, yep. And it's good to use that full term because that term reflected really tells you how these drawings work differently to a regular floor plan. They are a reflected view, which simply means that it's like you've got a mirror on the floor that's reflecting what will be on the ceiling above. Sounds complicated when you explain it, but it's much easier than drawing a true ceiling plan. You never draw true ceiling plans because a true ceiling plan would be a mirror image of the floor plan, which is useless, really. Technically, it's a thing, but again, you would never need to draw them. So they're called reflected ceiling plans because, again, of that idea of the ceiling being reflected into your plan view. Sounds complicated when you explain it, but it is a very simple thing to draw and work with. So here we're seeing what is on the ceiling above our lower floor level. And so I can see there that's the cutout for the stairs. And these are my floors that sit above that level. So that's one of the upper floors. But some other things look a bit strange, like these walls here, all because the ceiling plans are generally set with a much higher cut plane than the floor plans. So we need to bring that cut plane down. Have you dealt with cut planes before? So do you know what height a floor plan usually has the cut plane? So, yeah. About that. Well, if that's for ceiling plans, that would be about right. So for floor plans, yeah, between 1 metre and 1500 is pretty standard. And then ceiling plans usually are higher. So here, if we go down into the properties for this view and find view range, click edit, and then we can see the cut plane height. So you can see there it's really high, 2300. And we know, having looked at the section, that that's too high for this level because that's the height our ceiling's going to be. We want the cut plane to be lower than that. So I'm going to bring this down to, let's say, 1800. And then just click OK. Right, so now it's a bit more readable. And so I can see some of these elements, these are the higher things, the shelf and the built-in there. They must, of course, be higher than 1800, so it's cutting through those. And some of it on the walls and other things. But we're still looking up again to where our ceiling's going to be. So now I can make my ceiling. So I'm going to go to, again, the Architecture tab and click Ceiling. And then you'll see you've got two options to make a ceiling. You can either leave it on automatic ceiling, which gives you an automatic shape that it'll try to find. You can see there it's showing that red line. And when it works, it's a good option. But probably the one you should start with is sketch ceiling. So next to automatic ceiling there, it's got sketch ceiling. I'm going to click that. And then I'll draw the shape I want my ceiling to be. So just with the line tool, which it's already on up here. You can always check that. I'm then just going to trace the inside of these walls, where I want the edge of my ceiling to go. And coming over here, I've got a bit of a courtyard, so I'm going to finish it on this. What is it again? So it's this line. Yeah, and then up to here, back across. So I'm going around all of this area because there's a courtyard, and then over here is where my stairs are. So bring it up then to the wall, and then back across to where I started. So that's the shape I want my ceiling to be. So it's a bit like making a floor. And then over in properties, I'm going to type in the height I want. And again, I've already worked that out, 2300. And then I'm just going to show you how you can find the thickness of the ceiling. I'm going to click Edit Type. And then you can see there it's showing us the thickness, which is 57 mil. Right now, I just want it to be a little bit less than that, so I'm going to click Edit. And just round these numbers off. So I'm going to make that lining 10 mil. The gypsum wallboard is the underside of the ceiling. In Australia, it wouldn't be that; it'd be Super Seal plasterboard. Super Seal is a product name, that's Gyproc, but it's basically plasterboard, and so it can be 10 mil. And then the structure, I'll just make that 40. So altogether that adds up to 50, and that's my new ceiling thickness. So I'll click OK, click to finish, and then again with everything that where you're dealing with height, it's a good idea to have a look at it in this section. So I'll just double click that. And so you can see over here, there's my new ceiling. Now it's showing up white even in this section just because of the coarse fill option. So I'll just select that ceiling and show you. If I go to Edit Type, it's got the coarse scale colour set to black, but there's no pattern there. So I'll just click there and browse and choose solid fill, just so that it reads the same way as the floor with that nice black fill. So my ceiling's there, and so before you try to place any ceiling lights, you really need to have a good idea of where the ceiling is, the height, and which views are going to show it. And as you probably expect, ceiling plans are usually the best views for working with ceilings. So I can see it clearly there. There's the edge of my ceiling. And so now I can just go straight ahead and place some lights. So I'll come back and do a better demo on lighting later, but I'll just quickly give you an idea how to load them. So under the component option, place a component, load family, and then you'll see there's a default lighting folder, and then if you go to architectural and internal, you get a pretty good selection of lights when you install the program, and these are those. So this one's pretty good. There are some others there that are good, and most of them are ceiling lights, but there are some others as well. So these are different lamps, and there's all sorts of other floor lights as well, but again mostly they're ceiling lights. So again, they're pretty good, but I'm going to go to the Revit library we've got on the P drive. Of course, if you've got the shortcut, you can use that, but I'll just go manually to the library. And then here you'll see I've actually got two folders for lights. There's lighting and then lighting fixtures. No, sorry, no. We just had someone asking. Yeah, sure. No, so, yep, sure. Okay, so I've just gone to lighting fixtures to get this light that I've made, which is called Downlight Recessed Can Glow. Okay, so it's just a slightly improved version of the other recessed downlight. So we'll double click on that. And so then you can see as I go to place this light, it'll come up where I've got a ceiling. If I try to place it somewhere where there isn't a ceiling, you can see it's giving me that error symbol. Okay, so we can only place ceiling lights where we have a ceiling. So I'll just put in a few over here, near the shelves maybe, so it shows those up. And maybe a couple over here. There we are. And so probably the best tip I can give you about lighting is that you should work out what the light's doing for the render before you go too far and place too many of them. So I've just got a few there, and now I'll go to the camera view that I've already set up for that area, and I can see the lights there, of course, in the ceiling. And then we're just going to do a test render. So I'm going to go click on the teapot, make sure it's on interior artificial only, and then just click render. And it's black. And I knew that was going to happen because this space is very tight. And so I'm going to close the rendering, go to our section and show you why that light isn't coming through. So I'm going to go to wireframe and then change this option next to it to fine, so we can see through that ceiling, and then you can see the light. It's just a tiny bit too high, so you can see there it's going into the floor above in just such a tight space. So it's the floor blocking the light, and that's our problem. So we could bring all the lights down a little bit, but I don't really want to do that, so instead I'm going to bring that floor up, the bottom of it. I'm just going to select that floor, edit type, duplicate, and say generic 100 mil is my new name. Edit the structure and change the thickness to 100. So now there's a little gap between my ceiling and the floor. If you want to fill the gap in, you can always just go back to the ceiling and add 50 mil to that. So we can make that thickness there 90. And that fills the gap in again. But the important thing is that the light isn't getting blocked by the floor. Go back to hidden line and of course it's all hidden again. That's it. And then now if I go back to that camera view and render, now there's one other problem. Okay, so it's good to see this actually because you'll often have this problem. So it's still black. I'm pretty sure the lights are working, so then the problem usually is when you see that, it's usually the camera. So I'll go back to a plan view, and then the camera view I've been using is 3D View 8. So I'm going to right click on that and choose Show Camera, and then you can see the other problem. So my camera is inside a wall. So I'm just going to drag that forward slightly so that it's outside of the wall. And then open that view up again. And back to render. And finally we should get some light. There we go. Okay, so it's a bit dark, but that's normal. With most renders, you'll need to adjust the exposure. So I'm going to click Adjust Exposure there and make it a little bit brighter. And to see that effect, I'll click Apply, and there we are. It's a bit warm, so I'll also maybe just make that a bit cooler. Take some of that warmth off. And that's it. And well, we'll look at material adjustments. There's definitely some issues with those materials now, but that's something we can go further with later. So that's enough. So yeah, as long as you can get some lights to work, then you know, you can be a bit more confident about placing some more of them. So if I then wanted to go ahead and do the bedroom, I'd make another ceiling probably for that, or I suppose we could extend this ceiling, do it either way. Maybe select that ceiling and if I click Edit Boundary, add more to it. just joining all these lines together. And don't be too fussy about the shape of your ceilings. Often little issues like this won't be noticeable. You're not going to see that in any view. So again, you can get away with that. So I'll finish this, and now I can, of course, place lights into all of that area where I've extended the ceiling. Put some new down lights in there. And often does help to have lights going beyond the main area of your view. Right, so going back to render now, and we'll get some lights further off into the distance, which helps a lot for the realism. Yeah. So the next thing might be to get some lights on the level above, because that's my staircase there. So if there's some lighting coming down through that void, that'll make a big difference to the view as well. But again, these are all often design decisions as well. And there are plenty of other lights. I'll go further and do a demo later on the different light types and the way you can work with light families, but that should be enough to get you started creating some ceilings and some lights. You know, that's the last major aspect of your design. So I'll give some time to try those things.